Think Lee Marvin was a fake Hollywood tough guy? Well, think again, pal. Lee made 21 landings in battle zones while serving with the Marine Corps during World War II. Mr. Marvin was the real deal. Lee Marvin was born Lamont Waltman Marvin Jr. on February 19, 1924 in New York City. As with his elder brother Robert, 1922 to 1999, he was named in honor of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who was his first cousin 4 times removed. As a teenager, Marvin spent weekends and spare time hunting deer, puma, wild turkey, and bobwhite in the wilds of the then uncharted Everglades. He attended St. Leo College Preparatory School, a Catholic school in St. Leo, Florida, after being expelled from several other schools for bad behavior. Marvin left school at 18 to enlist in the United States Marine Corps Reserve on August 12, 1942. He served in the Pacific Theater during World War II. While serving as a combat sniper in I Company, 3rd Battalion, 24th Marines, 4th Marine Division, he was wounded in action during the Battle of Saipan, during which most of his company were casualties. References say that he was one of only 9 survivors of a Japanese attack on his unit. He was hit by machine gun fire in the buttocks, which severed his sciatic nerve, and then was hit again in the foot by a sniper. After over a year of medical treatment in naval hospitals, Marvin was given a medical discharge with the rank of Private First Class. He had previously held the rank of Corporal, but had been demoted for troublemaking. Marvin's military awards include the Purple Heart Medal, the Presidential Unit Citation, the American Campaign Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, and the Combat Action Ribbon. After the war, while working as a plumber's assistant at a local community theater in upstate New York, Marvin was asked to replace an actor who had fallen ill during rehearsals. He caught the acting bug and got a job with the company at $7 a week. He moved to Greenwich Village and used the GI Bill to study at the American Theater Wing. Marvin began appearing on television shows like Escape, The Big Story, and Treasury Men in Action. He made it to Broadway with a small role in a production of Billy Budd in February of 1951. In the early 1950s, Marvin began getting film roles. As a decorated combat veteran, Marvin was a natural in war dramas, where he frequently assisted the director and other actors in realistically portraying infantry movement, arranging costumes, and the use of firearms. He was a frequent guest star in early 50s TV shows and was now in much demand for westerns. The Stranger Wore a Gun with Randolph Scott and Gun Fury with Rock Hudson. In 1955, he played a conflicted, brutal bank robber in Violent Saturday. A latter-day critic wrote of the character, "Marvin brings a multifaceted complexity to the role and gives a great example of the early promise that launched his long and successful career." In 1957, Marvin finally got to be a leading man as Chicago cop Frank Ballinger in the successful television series M Squad. One critic described the show as a hyped-up, violent dragnet with a hard-as-nails Marvin playing a tough police lieutenant. Marvin received the role after guest starring in a memorable Dragnet episode as a serial killer. Marvin returned to feature films with a prominent role in The Comancheros, Michael Curtiz's last film, and the John Ford directed The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, starring John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart. As the vicious Liberty Valance, Marvin played his first title role and held his own with 2 of the screen's biggest stars. In 1964, Marvin appeared in The Killers, playing an efficient professional assassin alongside Clu Gallagher. The Killers was the first film in which Marvin received top billing and is also notable as Ronald Reagan's last film before entering politics. Marvin finally became a star for his comic role in the offbeat western Cat Ballou, starring Jane Fonda. This was a surprise hit and Marvin won the 1965 Academy Award for Best Actor. In 1967, he starred in the highly successful World War II epic The Dirty Dozen, in which top-billed Marvin again portrayed an intrepid commander of a colorful group of men performing an almost impossible mission. The Dirty Dozen included future stars John Cassavetes, Charles Bronson, Telly Savalas, Jim Brown, and Donald Sutherland. In the wake of these two films, and having received an Oscar, Marvin was a huge star and was given enormous control over his next film, Point Blank. In Point Blank, he portrayed a hard-nosed criminal bent on revenge. Marvin had a central role in the film's development, plotline, and staging. Point Blank is hailed in the book 1,000 Movies You Must See Before You Die as the perfect thriller in both form and vision. Film historian David Thompson calls the film a masterpiece. Thompson adds, "This is not just a cool, violent pursuit film. It is a wistful dream and one of the great reflections on how movies are fantasies that we are reaching out for all the time. It's Singing in the Rain again, the white lie that erases night." Director Steven Soderbergh said that he used stylistic touches from Point Blank many times in his filmmaking career. Marvin was originally cast as Pike Bishop, later played by William Holden, in The Wild Bunch, but fell out with director Sam Peckinpah and pulled out to star in the Western musical Paint Your Wagon, in which he was top billed over a singing Clint Eastwood. Despite his limited singing ability, he had a hit song with Wanderin' Star. By this time, he was getting paid $1 million per film, $200,000 less than top star Paul Newman was making at the time. Yet he was ambivalent about the film business, even with its financial rewards. You spend the first 40 years of your life trying to get in this business, and the next 40 years trying to get out. And when you're making the bread, who needs it? Lee Marvin. Marvin had a much greater variety of film roles in the 70s with fewer bad guy roles than in earlier years. Marvin was offered the role of Quint in Jaws, but declined, stating, "What would I tell my fishing friends who'd see me come off as a hero against a dummy shark?" Marvin's last big role was in Samuel Fuller's The Big Red One in 1980, a war film based on Fuller's own war experiences. For TV, he did The Dirty Dozen, Next Mission, a 1985 sequel with Marvin, Ernest Borgnine, and Richard Jacko picking up where they had left off, despite being 18 years older. His final appearance was in Delta Force, 1986, with Chuck Norris playing a role turned down by Charles Bronson. Marvin was a Democrat who opposed the Vietnam War. He publicly endorsed John F. Kennedy in the 1960 presidential election. Marvin married Betty Eberling in 1951, and together they had 4 children. Married 16 years, they divorced in 1967. Marvin reunited with his high school sweetheart, Pamela Feely, following his divorce. They married in October 1970. She had 4 children from 3 previous marriages. They had no children together, but remained married until his death in 1987. In 1971, Marvin was sued by Michelle Triola, his live-in girlfriend from 1965 to 1970, who legally changed her surname to Marvin. Although the couple never married, she sought financial compensation similar to that available to spouses under California law. The result was the landmark palimony case Marvin versus Marvin. In 1979, Marvin was ordered to pay $104,000 to Triola. In August 1981, the California Court of Appeal overturned the earlier ruling and nullified the award she had received. Michelle Triola died of lung cancer on October 30, 2009, having been with actor Dick Van Dyke since 1976. In December of 1986, Marvin was hospitalized for more than 2 weeks. Marvin died of a heart attack on August 29, 1987, aged 63. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. Lee Marvin was an artist whose work resonates down through the decades, influencing other artists and thrilling audiences. If you haven't seen Point Blank, or The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, or The Killers, or any of his other great works, do yourself a favor and watch them. You'll be glad you did. And let us not forget that as great an artist and actor as Lee Marvin was, he was an even greater man. When his country called, he answered. Boy, did he ever. Lee Marvin, American hero. Lee Marvin, an extraordinary life.